Hey everyone, I'm Alex Renham, and I'm here with Jim Matuga, who's the president of Interaction Media, here to talk about his entrepreneurial journey and his role as a father and a community leader, and all the things he runs into in growing his business and his family and his community. Jim, so much thanks for coming on the program today. I'm really excited to talk to you.
Yeah, Alex, thanks, man. It's a pleasure, and it's good to see you again.
Absolutely. So yeah, we first met a few years ago, and when I came on your podcast, which I totally want to talk about, Positively West Virginia. But interestingly, that was probably going to be a podcast that would have changed the world and brought so much attention, but it happened to be released right at the end of January 2020, and I don't
Yeah,
remember what happened
exactly.
right after that, but something,
Yeah,
right?
it
I
was a
don't know, some
blur.
kind of
Yeah,
thing. No, but that was
that's good
great, a
stuff.
great experience, and that really that having that discussion with you and having seen the podcast, listened to the podcast, and followed it afterwards, I'm just really impressed with what you've done with Positive West Virginia, not just with the production quality and all that you do and the awesome guests you bring on, but really the meaning behind it, what you're trying to do, the accomplishments and the value. For folks that don't know, could you just share a little bit, just kind of that headline? What is Positively West Virginia?
Yeah, Positively West Virginia is a podcast. It airs every Thursday. We've been doing this since 2017, and we talk with entrepreneurs, small business owners, and even some nonprofits, and we share their origin story. Okay, and my thought with the origin story is there is so much that goes on that never gets really any attention in the small business community here in West Virginia. I believe that somewhere between 80 and 85% of our gross domestic product here in West Virginia is small business. It's the mom and pops, but it's also companies like yourself that are doing things below the radar, under the radar, across the country. I don't even know if you have clients and customers, with your company, Alex, in West Virginia. At the time we talked, you didn't,
Right.
but people across the street don't know your business. And I want to shine the light on those companies. And here's why. Okay. Not only is it important to tell their story, but I believe that there's lots of inspiration and hope that comes from that. We hear so many stories every single week about the population, the brain drain, right? The young people are leaving the state because there's no opportunity. And I say, well, listen, there is opportunity. There is opportunity. It's in business. And maybe there's not a Fortune 500 company in your town, but you could start a company that could be a company that could grow into that size. Why not? Why not here in West Virginia? So it's leveraging those stories, the power of a story, right? The how, the when, the why, right? What do you do? How did you get started? And inspiring people, especially young people, to say, yeah, there is opportunity here.
Yeah.
And that's what Positively West Virginia is all about.
Man, I love it. I tell you, every time I talk to kids, whether it's in schools or just my kids' friends or anybody like that,
Yeah.
I know the messages they hear. Right? We're too unhappy, we're too stupid, we're too fat, we're too whatever, uneducated, whatever it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
And we can do it here, and it can be done, and it is being done. I love that. Maybe why we
Yeah.
jive so quickly when we got together on that
Yeah.
podcast, because your mission
Definitely.
is so closely aligned to what's in my heart and in our community, and I'm sure every community has variations on that, right? Whether you're from the inner city or
Sure.
you're from
Yeah.
a certain state or whatever else. But and I don't think we uniquely own that. But boy, there is just a lot of that comes at Appalachia and West Virginia in particular. And so
That's
I
right.
applaud you. Hats off to all that
Thank
you
you.
do in that effort.
Yeah, and what's neat about it too, Alex, is that we've recorded hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of episodes. We're like I said, we started in 2017, and we've never missed a week. Even during the pandemic,
That's crazy.
we were doing stuff every day because trying to bring content to people and entrepreneurs, small business owners here in West Virginia, and it was really awesome because I like to talk to people. I like to just listen to their story, and I
Yeah.
just ask the questions, and they do all the work really. And I always say before we talk with somebody on the show, I say, before we hit record, I say, this is your story. You're the hero here. I'm just simply the guide in the process. Let's just
I
have a
love that.
conversation just like you and I are doing right now. And it's a lot of fun for me. I've enjoyed every minute of it. It's one of the things I get to do as a business owner, right? It's not something I have to do. I get to do it, and I get the pleasure and honor of doing that and bringing those stories. And what's cool about it too is we started with a very small audience. I was recording the podcast on my iPhone, and now we have a studio, and now we have sponsors, and each episode is generating between 15 and 16,000 downloads
Wow.
per episode. So that's
Oh
pretty
man,
awesome too. So
that's
it's not a
impressive.
massive, audience, but it's a good audience.
Well, it's an impactful audience, Jim. I mean,
Yeah.
you can have a million followers, but if they aren't engaging, then what is it? I'm sure
Yeah.
your
Oh,
audience is
it's
very
fun.
engaged. And I
Yeah.
tell you, it fascinates me. And I got to tell on myself a little bit. When you
Yeah.
reached out about the podcast, this is years ago, and I knew you were doing stories on the show. I was like, oh my gosh, I love it. In fact, I had an idea like that rolling around my head forever. But I also, at the same time, thought, well, he's going to run out of episodes after how many months, right? Because this is West Virginia, and the
Yeah. Yeah.
reality is, you're here still cranking all these years later,
Yeah.
every week
Yeah.
putting out an episode of somebody who's blazing a trail, who's doing something cool, and it's not like we're in California. There's 1.8 million people in West Virginia, so that right there's a testament to what you said earlier, that there's
Yeah.
some really cool folks in West Virginia doing some neat
Yeah,
things here.
and what's cool about it too, Alex, is that we have people writing in now saying, "Hey, you got to feature this business," or somebody would say,
Yeah,
"Hey, I've seen this, I follow it. Would you be interested in my business and my story?" And we're like, "Yeah, let's do it. Let's have a
yeah, that's awesome.
conversation."
That's that
So it's
West
a lot
Virginia
of fun.
championship, that neighborly stuff, right? It's like, hey,
Yeah,
you need to talk to these people. You know this guy, you need to talk to them. I love it.
yeah,
That's
it's super
fantastic.
cool.
Well, so I know, we talked about that. There's a lot more we could go into. And certainly,
Yeah,
you're a pretty well-known guy around the state, and certainly in Morgantown, you're a father, you're a man of faith. You've got your
Mm.
found, you got businesses. Let's take a step back though. I'd love to hear kind
Sure.
of the Jim Matuga story. So it's your story. Let's how
Wow.
from your beginnings, and let's just kind of walk through that if you want. But we'll flip the
Yeah,
chairs on you for a
absolutely.
minute.
Yeah. Well, back in 1965, no, I'm not going to go there, but well, the truth of the matter is, I've been, from a professional standpoint, I've been in the media business all my life. I have recordings of myself when I was 8 years old, interviewing my friends, creating these little stories and narratives, and so going back to those days, I'm a musician, a drummer. I love music. I love creative concepts. I went to WVU, graduated in 1988. Worked my first job in radio at a local radio station as a copywriter. And my idea was that I was going to get this degree in advertising and go to Madison Avenue in New York City and work at one of the big agencies as a copywriter. Well, that didn't necessarily go the way I had thought it would, and so ended up in the media business all my career. I worked at the Dominion Post for something like 16 or 17 years. I was the general manager at WBOY and vice president for West Virginia media there for a couple of years, and then started my own agency, Interaction Media, in 2011. So we're in our 13th year now. And so that all that to say is that sometimes you have a plan, but God has a plan for you, and you just don't know where things are going to land. But all that to say is that I'm just doing what I think is the work that I was created to do. I was put here on earth to do what I'm doing, and I enjoy it. I love it. I run to work every day. Not literally, but figuratively in my mind. I can't wait to get here and get started every day. Got a great team. That's probably the most important thing that I've done, and over my career is been able to build great teams at every job that I was at. I was able to. Yeah, I wasn't a great leader necessarily, but I learned by my mistakes. I learned a lot of great lessons, along the way. And now we're in a position where Interaction Media, like I said, we're a mature business, getting ready to start our 14th year here in a couple of weeks. And I just got an amazing team, so talented. We're known for our video production, storytelling. So you can see the theme here with story, but we've got amazing video producers, videographers, photographers. They do an amazing job. We do a lot in the digital space, so website, social media, and content creation and all that. But video is kind of what we're known for, and not just high quality video, but effective, compelling marketing stories.
Yeah, the stories, man. That's where it's all at,
Yeah,
man. There's a lot
absolutely.
I want to go back just a second though. So you had from early on. You said you had that penchant for media,
Yeah.
and it's funny. I actually in a high school class we had a media production class, which was almost like a let's just take a fun class. And a buddy of mine and I would take a video camera out. At that time, they were you almost needed
Oh yeah,
you
sure.
know,
Yeah. The
and
shoulder. You put it on your
that's right,
shoulder.
that's
Yeah.
right. And we would go out to local businesses and interview them, and we were just kind of skipping class, feel having a good time. But it turns out that actually helped me really well in my business because it helped me sell because I was listening to
Yeah.
what somebody was saying, and then ultimately we were
Sure.
full circle in immediate thing. So
That's
it's
great.
interesting how things we do as children do still kind of play out and can be really an asset going forward in our
No
lives.
doubt. I mean, when I look back on it, all those days, and I mean, I had just a fascination with recording equipment, and I've got, you know, I don't know how many tens of thousands of dollars we have in recording gear. I don't even know how to turn the cameras on these days, but I own it, but I don't know how to use it. So I'm
Yeah.
glad I got a great team.
So well, and I want to get to the team thing because I am with you 100%. These guys who stand up and say, "I did this. I'm a self-made man. I did this." Well, okay. I wherever you are, there is people somewhere that helped you get there. I guarantee it. But I want to go. So you had that penchant for media and that interest, but at what point? I mean, you switched now. I mean, you've created all kinds of you creator, entrepreneur. But prior to that, you had been working in companies and doing different things. So what flipped the switch for you to say, "I'm going to go out on my own and do my thing"?
Well, that was always the dream. When I was in college and had this dream of being a copywriter, I was like, I want to work in a big agency and then someday own my own agency. And as I was getting into, like my late 40s, I was like, the clock is ticking. If I'm going to do this, it's going to have to be soon, because I didn't want to do it like when I was real young because I didn't want to fail and lose everything and all those kinds of things. But I wanted to do it where I had a runway of saying, okay, I think I can be successful at this. And so in 2011, that was that pivotal moment where I was like, okay, let's do it. I'm all in. And of course, when you start a business, it was just me and my kitchen table, and I bought a used Mac off of Craigslist. I don't even know if Craigslist is still a thing, but I bought a used Mac and I sat there at my kitchen table. I'll tell you a real funny story. I had a list of 10 people that I was going to call. I started my business on a Tuesday in October 2011, and I had a list of 10 people I was going to call that morning. So I got up first thing, went to the gym, came home, showered, put on a suit and tie, sat at my kitchen table with this used Mac computer that I bought with cash. And as I was getting ready to dial the first number, the CEO of Mon General Hospital calls me. He's caller ID, and I answered. He's like, Jim, I heard you just started your own company, an agency. And I said, yes. He said, I got a project for you. Are you interested? And I said, well, he wasn't even on my list. Okay.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so I said, yeah, I said, I'm definitely interested in. He said, well, could you get here today? I said, well, I'm booked today, which I wasn't. I kind of told a little fib, but I didn't want him to think that I was desperate. I said, this was Tuesday. I said, I've got an opening Friday morning at 8:00. He said, come over to the hospital. Let's have coffee. I'll tell you all about it. And that was our first client that we had.
Oh my
So
darn. That's amazing, man. I mean, every
yeah.
entrepreneur wants that. My goodness.
Well, it
Wow.
was kind of funny. The problem that they had is they had signed Mary Lou Retton, the Olympic gymnast, gold
Yeah.
medalist,
Legendary.
as their spokesperson. And he was like, I just don't know what to do with her. Can you help us figure out a marketing strategy? And so for the
Oh,
next
awesome.
5 years, we created a campaign called Better Together for Mon General, which is now
Yeah.
Mon Health. And the rest is history. We had so much fun and it was just awesome. And I remember we created a jingle. It was "Better Together." Basically, it was the tagline, and I had a partner at the time. I brought him in right after I started the business, and we were pitching the jingle to the board of directors for the whole health system, with a guitar and him singing it, and me reading the script of Mary Lou Retton, and it was just these people were like, "What is going on here?"
Dude, I love that.
It
So
was
I
fun.
remember seeing her come on talk, and it's
Oh
funny
yeah,
you
yeah,
talk about that's a great story for you, and what a great story to tell. I mean, Mary Lou Retton from
yeah,
oh my gosh,
yeah. It was fun.
that's wild. Okay, cool. Okay, I'm glad you told that story. So all right, so I want to skip. I want to go back to something that's easily skipped over because most people think I think it's easy. You might be working somewhere and you're in your mid 40s or early 40s, late 30s, whatever, wherever you are in your journey. You think I've already passed my early 20s or mid 20s, whatever. I can't start my own thing now. I can't do this thing now. So you had, I mean, you have kids at this point. What ages are they? Help me understand like your life
Yeah,
situation that allowed you
gosh,
to
yeah.
say it. Because it's
When I
always a
started
risk whether you're
yeah,
young or
yeah.
old or
Well,
what.
and it was, and I have, one thing that was always in the back of my mind is, especially when my kids were younger, is I have a son. His name's Dylan. Right now, he works at Pace Enterprises, and he here in Morgantown, he has a cerebral palsy. So he was born as a little preemie, a 1 pound 10 ounce baby, born at WVU Children's. Yeah, he was in the NICU for months, and just a miracle. but I was kind of tied to that insurance, when he was little. And I was like, I've got to just, I was like, we cannot afford to not have insurance for my son. And so that was back in the days. That was like the 90s, early 2000s. So my kids, by the time I started the business, were actually growing. My daughter, Jordan, she works at the FBI alongside her husband, Chris. They live in Fairmont. So my kids are still local here, but, they were older. They were out of the home basically. And so, yeah, it wasn't a balance act, so to speak, with the kids, but I think it is something that people are maybe feel that they're tied down to something like that, like an insurance policy or whatever. Or in my case, it was a special needs child, but now he's thriving and doing great, and so are we. So
That's
it's all
awesome.
it's all good.
That's great. And it's unfortunate side commentary. Here we are 30 some years later. We still haven't fixed the healthcare thing. People are still
Oh
tied to their
no!
jobs for healthcare. It's like, come
I
on.
know. Yeah, yeah, I know. Well, when I first started Interaction Media, I had no insurance. I
Yeah,
was like,
right.
man, just I hope I don't get in an accident. And back then, I was doing triathlons and all kind of crazy athletic stuff and all that. And I was always afraid of like something's going to happen here. But you just got to have faith too.
Well, you have no shortage of that, and it's also you've had some deliverance along the way. I mean, you get this
Oh
call from
yeah.
the CEO. That's unbelievable. So let's go through Interaction Media then for a minute. So you got this up, you got your first client with. I mean, that wasn't like a scrub job either. I mean, that's a big deal for
It was a
Mon
high
Health.
pressure. Yeah, it was high pressure,
Right.
man.
So how did you pull it off, and then how did you begin to scale this company, grow your team? I'd love to hear that story.
Yeah, it was. I had a business plan when we first started, and about 3 weeks into the business plan, I went back and revisited, and we weren't doing anything that I had written down. I mean, it was like we were going to be this print agency, and the Mon Health folks, they wanted TV and radio, and we're like, okay. Luckily, I had experience in all that. I had worked in all these different career paths, jobs that I had, and along the way, and I had experience with, just doing amazing, creative content, writing. I was a writer, by trade, and so it all worked out really well. As far as scaling the company, when we first started, I mentioned I brought a partner on. We went for probably a couple of years, just kind of, it was almost like a lifestyle job. We're doing okay, but we weren't really focused on like growth. And then in about 2017 or so, I bought my partner out, and it was all on me then. It was kind of interesting because about the same time, I was on a backpacking trip out in the wilderness of Alberta, Canada, at Mount Assiniboine, and was doing some soul searching. And I actually just I'll share this little personal story, but I actually prayed about, Lord, just, I don't know what you have in store for me, but I'm here. Use me as a tool in in your ministry. And so
Boy, that's a dangerous prayer. You better hang on when
it
the
it
answer comes.
was, but I was just like, what am I going to do? And all of a sudden, I buy my partner out, and I'm introduced to a guy named Bruce Lane here in Morgantown, and Bruce was starting a Convene chapter in Morgantown, and Convene is an international group of faith-driven entrepreneurs with the idea of trying to use your business as ministry. Right, business is ministry, business as ministry. We always talk about like raising the cross in the marketplace. That's kind of like what we try to do. So I meet Bruce, and I start on this path of saying, hey, I'm gonna try to use my business as a ministry. We don't have to do mission work in Ethiopia or Uganda or Honduras. I could do it right here in Star City, West Virginia. What does that look like? So I said, well, let's take the talents and abilities that we've been blessed with, not only myself, but my team, and use that for good in our community to help these other businesses to grow their business, to help them hire more people, and so forth and so on. We started having that mindset.
And you were
Well, it's
how many
funny.
people around then?
At that time, there was I think there was three of us, and now we're a team of 9, sometimes 10. We have a couple of contractors we use too, but we're a small team, but we're very focused, and 7-figure business and all that. And anyhow, it was interesting because as I'm talking, our logo is IAM, Interaction Media, and I'm telling a story to somebody, and they notice on my window I have like etched glass on the front of the building that says IAM, and somebody's like, "That's crazy that that you had the foresight to create a logo IAM because Jesus was the great I am," and I'm like, I had never thought of it.
That was your moment to say, of course, it was
Of course,
brilliance.
yeah. It's hilarious, but it is kind of funny, and it's not like we ram that down people's throat.
Sure.
Like I try to as a Christian, as a believer, we're called to spread the gospel basically, and we try to do that through our work, and little things like on my newsletter that goes out every month, I have scripture on that. I have scripture on the wall when you first come in the door of our building. So little things like that.
Yeah. Wow. That's
I,
amazing.
I don't know if that was the answer you were looking for, but I kind of went down that path.
Hey, no, that's the whole point why I want to talk to you today is just hear your path, hear your journey, because there are others out there's I know right now people listening might have heard when you had a team of three and you're trying to help your community and help and bring the Lord's word out to people and all those kind of things. Oftentimes I think we are under the spell that we have to be bigger, more wealthy, stronger, whatever, to be able to help others. And of course, we have to make sure we're stable. I get that, but team of three out there thinking, okay, we're
Yeah.
going to help our community. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great.
Well, I think that's important. An important point you bring up, Alex, because I'm of the belief, use what you have where you are. You don't have to say, well, when I'm making X amount of dollars, then I'll start my tithe, right? Do it.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Do it
right.
now. Do with what do what you can with what you have right now. You don't have to wait. Even like we talk a lot about, starting a business and these entrepreneurs, and I speak to a lot of young people, and I'm like, look, you want to be have a mobile dog washing business, right? Great. They want to buy the $100,000 vehicle that's got the wash station and all this, and I'm like, they're going to go to the bank and they're going to borrow the money and all that. I'm like, listen, does your mom have a dog? Yes. Start there.
Yeah, yeah.
Does your neighbor have a dog? Yeah, they have 3. All right. Well, there you go. There's your second customer. Just start with where you are with what you have and do it now. You don't have to wait. Just get started and try it, build something. It could be a side hustle. A lot of times I talk about, with starting a business, people want to take a leap of faith. I said, just take a step of faith. You don't have to quit everything and just start this thing. Put a foot out there and just see where it goes.
That's great advice. Yeah, there's a customer partner of ours that we've worked with for years, Burris. They're a fourth generation family owned distributor, cold storage distributor out in Delaware, and they have a phrase, and I hope I don't butcher it. I hope I don't get it wrong, but they have a phrase that I've always loved. I've got the essence of it. I always think about it: think big, start small, and pay with cash. And
Yes.
I mean, I'm like, that's about as magic as it gets for
I
business.
love it. Yeah, exactly. I'm a big believer in that too. Grow at the speed of cash. That's what I always say.
Yeah, yeah. I've made my choices at times where I've been out over my
I've been
skis, as
there.
you
Oh
will. Yeah.
yeah, I've been there. I've been there. Learned. That's one of those lessons that I've learned.
There you go. That's right. That's right. Okay. So, man, this is awesome. So we're going through interaction media. At some point, you decide to write a book, Marketing Matters. And tell us a little bit about that, why that was interesting in it, how you found the time for that while you're growing your business and also your community involvement. How did all that come together?
Yeah, so it was really interesting because I'm a writer, as I mentioned. I got a degree in copywriting and advertising from the School of Journalism at WVU, and so I had this I guess it was a burning desire, if you will, to really start getting my thoughts out there. I'm doing the podcast, but I wanted to really start putting some of my ideas out there. And how do you do that? Well, the best thing that you got to do is you got to start writing. You can't just talk necessarily. You got to put them in writing and vet them out and edit them and kind of get that going. Well, in 2019, right at the end of 2019, right before the pandemic, right before you and I talked and met there January of 2020, Brian Jarvis, who owns West Virginia News and a bunch of other entrepreneurial companies, had approached me. We had been working together on some projects, and he wanted to buy into Interaction Media, own a portion of it. And so we put a deal together, and he became an investor and a part owner, and obviously part of my transition someday. The continuation of Interaction Media will include Brian, but he said, you got all these ideas. Why don't we start publishing your column, or start writing a column in the State Journal, which is the state's business newspaper, and most importantly, their online edition and their email. So I said, I would love that. So I got a word count, started writing some content, and these columns started appearing. And then they were running in their other newspapers, like the Clarksburg Exponent, Telegram, and all these newspapers that they have across the state of West Virginia. And I started getting feedback. People were writing me and saying, "Hey, I love this," or saying, "Hey, I see you in the State Journal all the time." So I started, this idea for the book came up. What if I took these columns and put them into themes, and these themes could become chapters, and then I would write this book? And so that's what Marketing Matters was. It's self-published on Amazon. It's very easy to do, and I really enjoyed it. Now it's kind of cool because, like, when I go to speak, I get invited to speak at a lot of different things, mostly unpaid. So, but I love it because it's an opportunity just to communicate and maybe connect with people and provide value to them. That's my number one goal, is I want to add value to conversations. So it's kind of cool that I have a book, and I could, I pass out the book. If somebody asks a question at the end, I'll give them one of my books and that kind of thing. So it's a lot of
That's
fun.
awesome.
Yeah, it's a
How do
lot of fun.
you? So I think there are a lot of people in my position, your position, whatever, similar positions that want to that have that need. They feel that need. They do have things that think they can share. And I hear you say just start writing, and or to what you did there, take your column and begin to let that be the birth. So I hear all that all the time. I get it. I've got books in here. It feels like, right, and but I also struggle with the whole notion, and I think you've maybe you may have an answer here for me. The notion, well, I want to bring value, but I don't want to make it about me. I know there are people out in the world who they just want to be on front of the stage, they're the front man of the band. I get all that, and that's cool. But how do you make sure you're delivering value as opposed to your ego, thinking, oh no, now it's about me and not about the message or the value or what I'm trying to bring to whoever I'm
Yeah,
talking to.
absolutely. Well, I always begin with the story, obviously, and the best way to tell a story is begin with the hero in mind. In other words, who are you trying to add value to, and think about it from their perspective. What's in it for them? And so that's the way when I try to write anything, whether it's a blog post or a column, that's what I try to do. And a lot of times it's coming from, I'll be in a meeting and somebody will say something, and I'll use that as the jumping point. Say, in a business meeting that I was in, this topic came up, and I thought I would share my thoughts on it, see what you think, and I'll just kind of weave that in. So a lot of Marketing Matters is little anecdotes of things that I have experienced firsthand, and kind of share just some insight that I think might be helpful to folks.
Yeah, I
But
love that.
it's a great question to think about, because it could be easy to have a bully pulpit and just say, hey, this is what you got to think. I try not to do that. Try to be more, I guess, from a humble perspective, I guess.
Yeah, I love that advice. Find the hero first, because I think there are certainly some that struggle with they want their ego out there. They got to fight that, and there's others that struggle. They don't want their ego in the way, and everything in between. But I love that as a basis. That's pretty cool. That's good advice
Yeah,
there.
it's been a lot of fun, and honestly, in the way I tell talk to people about marketing, marketing is not about one thing; it's multiple things. Advertising is not one thing; it's multiple things. You got to experiment. You got to figure out a way to you know share your expertise. We call it your knowledge base, right? If you want to become a thought leader, well, you have to actually get your thoughts out there, right? If you want to show that you have empathy, I think that comes across in the things that we're just talking about, having that humble heart, right? And trying to show that you have empathy for people's situations, because people, especially today, I don't think give credibility unless you understand that they have authority and empathy, and if you have those two things, you can demonstrate that. I think it goes a long way.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yes, speaking of many things, so let's go back to interaction media. So it is many things. We talked about what you're doing. Obviously, the run rate of your business and serving customers across the world or across the nation. But you also have now this piece of software you built, this SaaS offering out there,
Yeah.
StoryMaker. And
Yeah.
when I saw it, I was like, "Whoa, this is cool." So tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about
It's
how
very
you went
cool.
from media guy to now you've got your own software as well.
Yeah. So we're a marketing and technology company is what I say
There you
now.
go. That's right.
And people are like, technology, what's that? So I'll give you a real quick rundown because this is kind of, I think it's interesting and it ties in perfectly with some of the things we're talking about with WVU and West Virginia and how we're all connected. Well, back in the fall of 2022, right? We're hearing about artificial intelligence, right? And I get an email because I had been kind of in communication with Sarah Biller, who is running Vantage Ventures at the John Chambers College of Business and Economics. I get an email from her, and she had remembered a conversation about me wanting to develop software to help automate some of the processes, some of the story processes we have at Interaction Media. She sends this email connecting me with a guy named Kerry Landis. Kerry's starting this initiative in January of 2023 to build 10 SaaS applications in 10 weeks through the Chambers College of Business and Economics. And John Chambers, the namesake of the John Chambers College of Business and Economics at WVU, was writing a grant to fund this. And so Kerry says, "Hey Jim, Kerry and I knew each other. He's a banjo player, guitar player. He loves bluegrass music, and so do I. And so we've known each other for a while. But I didn't know what he was doing. He didn't know what I was doing. So this email was fortuitous. And that email comes out like the week before OpenAI unleashed ChatGPT to the world. It's November of 2022. You remember this? So Kerry's like, "Hey, in December." In January 2023, if we're going to start this thing, you want in? And I was like, well, how do I apply? I tell him my idea. He's like, well, your idea of taking a story process using generative AI to create content for marketing is genius. You're in. You don't even have to apply. I want you a part of this thing. I'm like, okay, well, what do I do now? He's like, well, you're going to get on this call and we're going to do coding. And I'm like, I don't know how to code. I don't know anything about. He's talking all these terms, and I'm like,
Right.
I just have this idea. So right before the January 23, that over Christmas break, I sat at my conference table and I had 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper and an ink pen, and I mapped out how StoryMaker could work by taking our story process. We have this 8-step process that we've used and created over the last 13 years. And then I knew enough about ChatGPT, just experimenting with it as it's coming out, what it was capable of. I said, if we created a database of like all the business background, like here's all the stuff, like here's who you serve, the problems you solve for people, all the different product offerings. And then we had this database, and then whenever you created the content, you created another database of all the like a library, an archive. That would be wild. I mean, it could be just mind blowing how this could work. And so I started thinking about that, and I said, well, what is the problem that I'm solving here? Right. That's what I wanted to go to. And I said, well, the most basic problem that I see, and I've seen this my entire career since 1988, is that most small businesses and nonprofit organizations struggle with how to tell their story in 30 seconds, their 30-second pitch. And I said, you could be a 25-year-old business and you ask the owner, what do you do? And it's just it stammers around. I said, what if we could create a tool that they create this 30-second pitch instantly on the fly? They could save it on their phone. They could, if they're in a networking event, they know exactly what to say or whatever. And so that's what we did. And 10 weeks later, I was the first out of the 10 to actually get to what they call an MVP, or minimally viable product. You know this. And the MVP, we were on a live call. We had these programmers from India on there. There's probably 30 people on the call, and they're like, Jim, you get to be the first test to see if your SaaS application works. And I said, okay, guys, here we go. And I hit the make my story button, and I saw the wheel spinning, and it popped up like 5 seconds later. And it was like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe that just happened. And it worked. And so from that 10-week period, from the first week of January, we had like 2 months to get this thing to go to market. I set like this arbitrary goal: May 1st, 2023, we're going to launch Storymaker, because nobody had created anything like
Yeah, get
this.
out in front of it. Yeah.
And so May 1st, 2023, we actually had a media release that went out. It was picked up by Yahoo Finance. It was on page one of Yahoo Finance. It just blew up. And next thing you know, it was just amazing. Like, how to launch a product. I had never felt so exhilarated in all my life. And at the time, I was 58 years old, and I am, like I'm like a kid. Like, I cannot believe how awesome this is. I was so jazzed up. I mean, my team was like, "What is going on?" That, because I wasn't really sharing like what was happening with. They're like, "Are you going to put us all out of work?" I'm like, "No, no, no." It was really a crazy time, and one of the most exhilarating times in my life, to bring something to life like that, from ink on paper to a software application. Now we have hundreds of people across the country buying subscriptions and everything like that. I'll share one little thing with you. Coming out of that project, John Chambers, he is like a world business leader, especially in AI. I mean, he's like one of the AI experts right now. And he came into Morgantown last fall, and I had a chance to have a one-on-one with him. And at that time, I just said, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to ask him. I said, could you mentor me for a couple of months on this product? And if it wasn't for you, this thing wouldn't even be on the market. I need some help. And he said, he goes, my gut instinct is to say no, because I'm full, but I'm going to do it, and I will mentor you. So I had some very amazing conversations with John Chambers. It was like this, over Zoom. He lives in California. I'm here in Morgantown, and when he one of the best pieces of advice he gave me, and I'll share this with your audience, is I kept saying, what makes us different is I'm not a tech company. I'm a marketing guy who created a software application. He goes, but you are a technology company. He goes, if you don't think of yourself as a technology company, you are going to be left in the dust. And that goes for any business in the United States right now. Every company needs to be thinking of themselves as a technology company. That's why I said we're a marketing and technology company. The second thing that was cool about that too is, he said, how can I help you next? I said, well, I think the play here is to, like, spin this technology to partner with somebody, not just, somebody who's got big, deep pockets, because I hadn't really invested anything other than my time in this whole thing. And he said, well, he goes, I am going to put you in touch with a couple of people. And those spurred other conversations. Well, one of those people that I got a chance to talk to was Brad Smith. And Brad Smith is the president of Marshall University. And Brad, I had asked for a couple of conversations, or one conversation that led to 3 conversations with him, Zoom calls. He asked me a similar question: "What can I do for you?" I said, "Well, I'd really like to take this technology and leverage it with somebody else, like a partner." He said, "I'm going to put you in touch with Rania Sakour." He goes, "Do you know who she is?" I said, "No." He goes, "She's the CEO of MailChimp." And so the next, like 2 or 3 days later, I'm on a Zoom call with Rania Sakour, the CEO of MailChimp. And she says this, she says, "Jim, Storymaker is amazing." She goes, "What I just saw," because I did like a live demo for her. She said, "We've been working on this for about a year, and you have exceeded my team on your capabilities for generative AI content. Would you be interested in selling this to us?" I'm like, oh my goodness. Well, long story short is I'm still working, so that deal didn't happen. But man, was it exhilarating? Having
Holy smokes.
I would take my phone on the screen and take a snapshot and send it to my wife and be like, "Can you believe I'm having a conversation with John Chambers?" Anyway, it was a fun time, and lots. I guess the biggest takeaway from that is, man, there's going to be opportunities, that come your way. And I always say this: without a clear vision of what you want to do, it's impossible to tell an opportunity from a distraction. I had a clear vision. I wanted to create this piece of software that would help us to expedite and improve the efficiencies for our processes. I let a couple of key people know that. And next thing you know, I'm doing this thing, and next thing you know, we're launching a software application. It's
No
crazy.
question. It's so amazing. There's several takeaways I want to get to. One, I'm totally in agreement with John Chambers. This feels to me like the moment when the internet came out. And
That's
if
right.
your business
Yep.
said, "I'm not going to get on the internet. I don't know what that is," you were going to be left in the dust. And AI is going to be the same way. It's
Oh
you've got to
yeah.
get in early. So I
Yep.
think he's super
I love
wise
it.
there.
Yep.
But I got, and I don't want to keep beating this record, but you're 58 when you start. I mean, here you are in this company. You've got an established company. You didn't have to go do anything else. You didn't have to go do this,
Yeah.
but here
That's
you
right.
are. And here's the other thing. And I think this one, I hear this in echo in my head. I was told as a young man, and it's hard in those moments. You have to ask. You're there with John. You could have been nervous. You could have been, well, he's not going to say yes. He's not. He's busy. Former CEO of Cisco, chairman of the board. He's not going to say yes to me. You could have just not asked, and then you'd have never had that journey. That's
I
amazing.
know, I know, I know. And I thought the same thing, man, because I was scared. I mean, he's an
I bet.
intimidating dude. I mean,
Of course.
and it was kind of cool because the day that I met him and got to spend, some time with him one on one, he and I spoke in 2 entrepreneurship classes at WVU. That it
Oh,
was
okay.
last fall,
Yeah.
and so I was like he's in the audience listening to my talk, and I'm like, oh God,
No
you know,
pressure. No pressure.
but I nailed both of them. I thought, I thought I did a really good job of explaining what we're doing and had, connected with these young people and stuff like that. But then afterwards, talking with him, and then I was like, I just got to ask him. And if he says no, what do I got to lose, But it was super cool, and then to have an opportunity just to have some mentorship from him personally was priceless.
Yeah, and then the connection to Brad and others. I mean, that's amazing. And again, you just have to ask. Worst thing you could say is, "No, I'm busy," and you'd have moved on with yourself. I will tell you a small anecdote. So, Kerry Landis, you mentioned. So actually, and he probably wouldn't know me on the street, but I interned when I was in college at their startup down on Spruce Street. It was
Key
a one
Logic.
Key
Was it Key
Logic.
Logic?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
one with he and I just lost his name, but yeah, his partner at the time, and
That's
yeah,
amazing.
it was neat. So I learned a
Oh,
lot from
that's
those
so
guys
cool.
early on.
Yeah,
It's
isn't that
funny,
a small
small world.
world?
It is
Yeah.
indeed.
It's so cool. So cool.
So let's move. All right, so that's not enough, right? You got this awesome AI software. It's cool. It's out in front. You've had this amazing mentorship journey with John Chambers and all that crew. But now you're looking kind of the next another phase or another avenue for interaction media. This whole I am outdoors, and so
Yeah.
tell us what that's about and why you went there and what's happening.
Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about this because, I'm an outdoors person. I love my main passions are being out, especially in West Virginia. I love fishing. I'm a bass fisherman, whether I'm on my bass boat or in a trout stream, fly fishing, hiking, backpacking with my wife. Just being outside. And so I kept thinking like there's something there. I don't know what it is, So being a small West Virginia agency, we don't have like a vertical niche that we follow. We have customers in a variety of different things. WVU Medicine is one of our longtime clients, and just all these different amazing businesses. So many, if I named them all, you would recognize them. Uh, but you know, I'm like, man, wouldn't it be cool if I could represent one of my favorite brands like an Orvis fly fishing or a North Face or Patagonia and do video content for them. So I started thinking about this last fall. This would have been the fall of 2023, and I was like, I really want to get that feeling of creating a something new and fresh like we did with Storymaker. And I started thinking, well, my team loves this stuff too. They're going on backpacking trips, adventure trips, hiking, camping, all the stuff. And I said, all the folks on my team love this stuff too. What if we could create a little vertical for ourselves and create this content right here in our backyard? So I had an opportunity as I was fleshing this out back in January. A friend of mine introduced me to another friend. He's here in Morgantown, and I had this introduction, and I had no idea who this guy was. And I'm talking to him, and he says, "Jim, I know who you are. You sit right in front of me in church every Sunday." He goes, "I've always wanted to come and introduce myself, but I never have." And so we started having this conversation. Well, anyway, he worked in the web department for a large agency that does nothing but uh, digital, like web, like high-end website development for all the brands that I just talked about, these major companies. It's called Zane Ray, and they're over in Whitefish, Montana. And so I said, well, could you get me an introduction? Because I just want to talk to them. So I talked
There's
to
the
the,
ask again. There's the
yeah,
ask, right?
yeah. And so I'm just starting to put all this stuff together at the beginning of this year. And I have a conversation with one of their vice presidents who's been there since they started, and said, I'm just a small boutique video agency. I'd like to get into the outdoor space for working with manufacturers, hunting, fishing, backpacking, overlanding, whatever it might be. She says, well, that's all we do. And I said, well, let me, so we just have a conversation. It's like an hour-long conversation. And she says at the end, she says, we don't do any video production or photography. We farm it all out. We have a company in Denver that we use and a company in Canada that we use. We don't have anybody on the East Coast. We're flying these people out there to shoot stuff on the East Coast. Put your reel together, send it to me when you're ready. If it's good, we'll use you guys. And so I sent her the demo reel that we had put together. She's like, "This is your all your shots." I said, "Yes." She said, "This is amazing. Put your demo reel together. Give us a couple of spots and like actual clients, and then we'll get to work." So that's what we're doing right now. We've got a couple of contracts underway right now, video productions, where we're going to be shooting for national companies right here in West Virginia.
Oh, that's awesome.
Creating content for them. So yeah, I'm very excited about that.
Dude, that is exciting. And I mean, the listeners that may be listening that haven't been to West Virginia, I mean, this is a beautiful state. We've got our challenges and we can talk about those too, but my goodness, you drive just about any direction from Morgantown or from Grafton where I am. Even in our places, it's beautiful, but just a little ways out and it's like, holy smokes. It's
Yeah,
just amazing.
it's awesome. Yeah. So, and we got our first national park now with the New River Gorge National Park. So we've got access to just amazing scenery, whitewater, hiking, camping, backpacking, fishing, all the stuff right here in our backyard. And so we're going to start leveraging that. And it's been really cool. Most of our there's not a lot of manufacturers in West Virginia in this space, so most of our clients are going to be coming from out of state. But like the first client we signed was in Arkansas, and they didn't have they're like, we could just shoot it right there in West Virginia. I'm like, yeah, that's the whole point. And so that's what we're working on right now.
Jim,
That's
that's awesome,
one of our
dude.
contracts. Yeah.
That is fantastic. Congrats. I'm excited to see as
Yeah, me
that
too.
continues where that goes.
And like I said, we do tremendous creative video work for a lot of different clients, but not to say that it's not fun to work on a cardiothoracic procedure or something. That's great, and we love doing that. But this is kind of stuff that we do, and we know it like inside and out. So that's what we're going to be working on.
That's awesome. So I feel like we could go on for hours, but I've got one more thing I want to do, and
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I'll
yeah,
try, and
yeah,
then we'll
yeah.
close it out, and I'll let you
Yeah,
go, man. But
this is great. Yeah.
So talk about our surrounding in West Virginia. I want to pull back on that thread of community. So you're doing all this stuff, you're growing your business, and your kids are grown, but you've got your wife's there. I mean, how do you handle being married and doing this thing, and then ultimately, then I want to drive right into how do you stay active in the community? How do you balance the community investment and engagement with your time and money potentially, but whatever resources you have to offer, how do you invest that and balance it with your community, your business, and your wife and your relationship there?
Yeah, yeah. So we, my wife and I, do a lot of stuff together. So that's very helpful. I will say, we have a lot of passions that we're involved with. I serve on several boards, and when I say serve, I mean it's not just my name's on the agenda. It's like actually digging in, and I have always been that way. Morgantown Rotary Club, Morgantown Area Partnership, Pace Enterprises. I serve as a coach for West Virginia Miracle League for the last 23 years. Teaching and coaching kids and young adults with disabilities how to play baseball. My wife and I are very active in the foster community. A couple of years ago, we became certified foster parents, so we're doing respite foster care, and now I'm on a startup board for a new organization. It's kind of a division of Chestnut Mountain Ranch. We're going to be opening up a girls' ranch, just like in Morgantown. It's going to be over in Garrett County, Maryland, and that's something that's going to be really impactful for a lot of people, especially these young girls that they get warehoused in these institutions, and it's not right. And so we're gonna provide a Christ-centered school and boarding home for these young girls that are slipping through the foster system.
Wow, that's awesome. And Chestnut Ridge for the boys, that's like 20 years at this point, right? Or somewhere near
Yeah,
there.
I'm not exactly sure. Next Friday is their night at the ranch, so I'll be going up there, and they're going to be this. I may have been a little premature announcing this, but it's going to be coming out that well, it's out there already. But the point is yeah, Steve Finn and Don Finn, they had a vision to bring Chestnut Mountain Ranch to Morgantown, and now we're going to be doing the same thing for girls over in Garrett County.
I'll tell you that's amazing. There's so much I got kind of goosebumps thinking about it because our state, as you know, and again, we don't have the license on this, but the amount of foster kids we have and the amount of challenges we have here, yeah, thank you for that work. That's amazing.
Well, Alex, it's just I'll say it. It's sickening the way our
Yeah,
system is set up and the way that the system is failing these kids, and it's everything. And I know that there's a lot of good people out there trying to do good work, but the way the government has set this thing up, it is such a
it's broke.
quagmire. And the kids, I mean, I hear stories. I'm not saying every day, but
Yeah.
constantly stories of this. Like, what? How is this? How is this even possible? So,
It's broke, and our kids are paying the price.
yeah,
That's for
yep.
sure.
And it doesn't
I
need to
think
be that way.
so. Let me go one layer in again. I want to try to get you off here and get you out to do the great things you're doing, but I want to ask a little more on that because in my experience, when I was a younger entrepreneur, when I moved back home, it was after Iraq. I come back home. I start several businesses because I'm like, oh, well, I'm doing all these things, and I jump on all these boards, and all these organizations are want your help, and it's great, and I want to help, and I got to the point where literally I was spread so thin on time and finances that I was literally like thinking, okay, do I have to go bankrupt here? What's going to happen? I mean, with my time and my money, what am I going to do? And a gentleman at the time sat me down, and he said, son, if you want to do well in your community, if you want to do great things for your community, because he looked at my portfolio of things, right? And he said, you see that Mountain Leverage? That's my technology company. He said, you see that? He said, put everything you have into that, be successful, and come back and build ball fields and do this and do that. And he went through all that. And now, I haven't arrived in that way, but that has always stuck with me that I've got to make sure I can function and I can be capable without being spread so thin. And I think that's a challenge for many of us in our communities because we can be capable in our businesses and we can be capable in our communities, but you can only be so much, right?
Yep,
And you have all
yep.
those things to
I
balance.
think,
How do you do
yeah,
that?
I think it's just a powerful question, and I think that the way I would answer it is you gotta put your focus on the passion, right? So if you're, like I mentioned, I'm on the Morgantown uh, area partnership board, but I love that work because it's fostering entrepreneurship, business, economic development, community enhancement. I serve on PACE. My son, has his issues, and so I wanted to create a place for. I think I served on that board for 25 years. I just came off of it in January, so I can focus on other things. But the Morgantown Rotary, I served as a past president for the Morgantown Rotary Club, and those are little things, but you put them in your schedule and you commit to them and you do them, right? And I think that's the key is not necessarily trying to monetize it, but try to add value to the organization. I think another pragmatic piece of advice on that is like turn off the TV. I don't spend any time when we go to bed at night. We haven't listened to the news. We haven't watched TV. We don't sit around. We're constantly working, and what I mean by working is we get a lot of pleasure out of that, like volunteer work. Like last night, I think we came home from Miracle League baseball game. We got home at like 8:45, and bedtime's 9:30, and we still had chores to do. So we go out and do our stuff that we have a couple of acres or whatever. You have a lot of work to do, right, around the house, and so we just don't sit around and just have idle time. And the other thing I think too, this is an important thing, and we could probably go on for an hour just on this topic, but when you have your priorities, especially like in a marriage, if you're not working together on goals and you're not in alignment, then that makes it even more difficult. So we have like 11 buckets of priorities, my wife and I, and we basically have these things, this like a framework, and we go every Sunday, 8 p.m. We do a temperature check, and we just make sure that we're in alignment for the week coming up, the week that just passed. We talk about things, and if it's something on our, we get an invitation to do something, and it's not in one of those 11 buckets of priorities, we just say no immediately. We don't even have to think about it, And so if you have something like an activity or a board or something you're working on that checks 3 of those boxes, and you're like, done, let's go. We're all in. You don't even have to think about it. So I think, getting your priorities and goals in alignment with your partner, or if it's just yourself, that's fine too. Make sure you have those and you're focusing on the important things. Do only what you do, only do what only you can do. That's my point.
Oh yeah. I love
Yep.
that. Yeah.
So
How long had you and your wife had that kind of list? Maybe it's gone through iterations through the years, but
yeah,
how often have you had that synced up goal
well, we've
of
been
the goals?
married a little over 10 years now, and we started that probably 9 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
and
awesome.
every Sunday it's called our weekly temperature check, and we sit down and maybe it's down at our fire pit or in front of the fireplace with a glass of wine or a cup of coffee, and we just talk, and we have a framework. There's like 7 questions that we go through. It's kind
Oh
of
man.
weird, but hey, man,
I love
it
it.
works. It works.
I love it. That's right up my alley. My wife would kind of cringe a little bit, but I'm trying to get her to that kind of way. I need it. It's important. It's to your point. Then you don't have to think of it because you make a decision a million times a day as an entrepreneur, as a founder. And if you can just have a quick way to map to say, yep, does this fit or does it not? If it doesn't,
Well,
out the door.
Alex, I mean, this is going to sound very weird, but like even my friend list, it's very short. I mean, I have like 3 friends that I want to spend time with. And so if I get an invitation to go to a WVU football game with somebody that I'm an acquaintance with, I'm like, football's not on my priority list and you're not on my priority. I don't tell them that,
Of
but I'm
course, and
like,
it's nothing against them at
yeah,
all. It's just,
yeah.
yeah, I
But,
get it.
if my number one buddy calls and says, "Hey man, I need to grab dinner tomorrow night. Can you talk?" I'll be like, "Yes, I'm there."
Yeah, yeah.
There's no question about it.
Yeah, that's important, man. That's I guess that does answer the question I'm asking because so many people, organizations, needs out there. I mean, there's the old joke. Stephen Wright, I think, was a comedian. He was always joke like, when he was a kid, he saw a commercial that said "Smoky Barrel and the you can prevent forest fires," and he didn't sleep for weeks, because he out there trying to. I think entrepreneurs suffer from that a little bit because we think, well, I can solve that problem and I can do this and I can.
Yeah,
Yes, that person wants me to go here, and all of a sudden you're depleted, you're not
yeah,
effective, and you
yeah.
can't be you in the market out in the world.
Well, focus. The word focus is also an acronym, and it stands for follow one course until successful.
Oh, I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome. Well, Jim, I've had a great time. I'm so glad you
this
came
is
on
fun. Yeah,
today.
thank you, man.
And we
Thanks for
could
having
go on
me.
more. Maybe we'll have you back on sometime for sure. But Jim Matuga, the president of Interaction Media, and so many other things we just went through,
That's fun.
author, community leader, all the things, father, husband. Thank you for coming on, and thank you for all you do for the market, for West Virginia, and as a beacon and a leader for young entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs of all ages. So
Thanks,
thanks for coming on,
Alex.
Jim. Thanks for
Thank
all
you,
you
man.
do.
You're too kind. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Thanks.